So if you're closing a seller finance real estate deal with a land contract, there's a lot of different details and information that gets baked into these documents, and it goes without saying that one of the most important things you'll have to complete in this process is the actual land contract document itself, which is also known as a contract for deed in some areas. And this is the ultimate loan document that lays out all the terms and conditions that both the buyer and the seller have to adhere to for the life of this loan. And understandably, this is a part of the process that can be really intimidating to a lot of people. And in a lot of situations out there, it makes all the sense in the world for an attorney to take a look at all the information, prepare all the documents, the whole 9 yards. But there are some deals out there, say if I'm selling a property for a relatively low price and it's just a vacant lot, there's not a lot of complexity to the deal. In those kind of situations, I have no problem filling out my own land contract form simply because I understand how the process works and I know what kind of terms and conditions belong in that document and what I'm willing to accept. And there's a service out there that can really come in handy in these kind of transactions, and it's called RocketLawyer. And the thing I like about RocketLawyer is that it makes it really, really easy to just answer a number of questions and input some information, and it generates the full, complete document for you, which you can download as a Word document, and you can edit it further if you want to, or you can save it as a PDF and just print it off and complete it right there. So I'm not necessarily telling you when you should or shouldn't use this kind of service. That's really up to you to decide. I just want to make you aware that this service is out there. And what I want to do in this video is just take you through a hypothetical example of how to use the service to complete a land contract. And I think when you use this kind of service, especially the first time you're doing it, it still makes sense to run it by an attorney just to make sure that all the state-specific requirements are met and that it gives you the ability to do a non-judicial foreclosure if your state allows that option. Just all that kind of stuff that may not be baked into this sort of boilerplate template. But if you're in the real estate business and you're doing land contracts, I just think it's a good option for you to be aware of. So I'm just going to take you through the process and you can see how easy it is. And if it looks like a good option for you, I do have an affiliate link beneath this video that you can sign up for RocketLawyer through, and I'll get a small commission for that. And if you do that, I thank you very, very much for your support. And if not, that's totally cool too. I wish you the best with whatever service or template you're using. But if you got a few minutes, follow along and I'll just show you how RocketLawyer works. So again, I have a RocketLawyer account, so I'm just going to take you through the back end and show you how to get started. Once you're signed in, you can go to this tab over here that says Documents, and then click here where it says Start New. And then all you have to do is search for the type of document that you're trying to create. And a land contract also goes by the name contract for deed. So I'm going to type that in here. Actually, just type in the word deed, and then you can find all these things. And this is the one I'm looking for. So I'll click on that. And then once you're here, all you have to do is start answering questions and it will compile the document for you. So in this example, I'm going to do this in the state of Michigan. So it's already on Michigan, just click Make Document. And then the first thing here, we're just going to say what type of property it is. And in my case, it's going to be a vacant lot. Or alternatively, you could also pick vacant lot to be used for residential real estate. I know that's a really common type of property that I get where it's like a buildable lot and the only thing you can do with it is build a house on it. I'm going to go with this one here. And then right here, we're just going to put in the physical address of the property. So I'm just going to make up an example here and we'll do 48906. Click continue, and then who is selling the property. In this case, I'm going to say that I'm the seller and I'll just put in my name here. Or alternatively, if I was selling this in the name of my company, I could put that in here too. ABC Company LLC, something like that. In fact, let's go with that because that's usually the way my deals work. So then we'll click business here. And then who will sign this contract for deed for ABC Company? In this case, I'm just going to put in my name because I'm the signer on behalf of the company and I'm the manager of my LLC. If you've got an LLC like I do, the title kind of depends on how your operating agreement is set up. If you have one, you could also put in member here if you wanted to, but mine is set up so that I am the manager and I control everything. So that's why I'm putting that there. And then what is the physical street address of ABC Company? This is where I'll just put in my actual street address, and there it is. And then we'll hit continue. And then where will this seller sign the contract for deed? This is just asking where I am going to be located when I sign the document, because that determines who the notary is going to be. And just so you know, if you wanted to, you could skip this step altogether by just clicking skip. And then all it would do is in the end document, there would just be a blank there and somebody would have to write it in by hand. But since I know, where I'm going to be most likely when I sign this, I'll just go ahead and put that in here. So I'll put in Michigan and then Kent County, then continue. And then who's the first person that will witness this seller signing the contract for deed? I don't necessarily know this yet, but I do know that they're most likely going to be in the state of Michigan. So I'll just put that there and then hit continue. And then sellers just got ABC company like that. And then who is buying the property? This is where we put in the name of our buyer/borrower. So we'll just make up a name here, John Smith. And this will just be a single person. If you wanted to put this in the name of a husband and wife, you could, check that, or business or trust, but I'll just keep it simple, do a single person here. Now this is where we put the physical address of our buyer. So this would be wherever they live or work or want to receive any kind of notification about the payments on this property. So I'll just make up another street address here. And then where will John Smith sign the contract for deed? We're going to say that he's going to do this in Michigan, in Wayne County. And by the way, if you ever get stuck on anything in this document, say if you just don't understand what you're supposed to be putting in here, or if you don't understand what it's telling you to do with each item, RocketLawyer makes it very easy to just ask a one-off question about that item to an actual attorney, and then they will get you that answer back, usually within the same day. So just keep that in mind. Usually each one of these items does a really good job of explaining what you're supposed to do, but if you come across something that just doesn't make sense, feel free to ask a question. That's part of what you're getting as the cost of your membership. And then this thing is the same deal, where we're just going to put Michigan and leave the rest blank. And then we're going to just hit continue. And then when will the contract become effective? We're going to say that we're going to close this deal on May 1. So that will be the date at which all of this stuff is officially set in stone. And then what is the legal description of the property being sold under this contract? Now, the legal description is usually a very confusing string of words and numbers. Typically doesn't make a lot of sense to the layperson, but it should look something like Section 10, Range 5, Block 8, Lot 14, City of Lansing. Sometimes a legal description will be very short and sweet and to the point, and other times it will be very long and complicated. But whatever it is, you can usually find this on your county website or on the copy of the most recent deed of record. Or alternatively, if you're a subscriber to a service like Agent Pro 24/7 or RealQuest, a lot of times you can find those legal descriptions in those databases as well. It doesn't necessarily have to make sense to you, but it should match exactly with what you see on the most recent deed or on the county website, because this literally describes what property is being transferred. So this is definitely a part of the document that you do not want to mess up. So just keep that in mind and hit continue. And then who should the payments under this contract be made to? In this case, if you're going to be using a loan servicing company, you would put their name and address in here. Or if you're going to be servicing it yourself by collecting physical checks in the mail or having them automatically wire the funds from their bank account or from their credit card, in those cases, then you would put your name and address here. So in this experiment, I'm going to assume the latter. So I'll put my company name in here, put the address in there, and hit continue. And then what is the total purchase price of the property sold under this contract? Keep in mind, this is not just the loan amount, this is the total purchase price. So in this example, I'm going to say it's $25,000. And continue. And then will the buyer have to pay interest under this contract? Yes. I almost always do 9.99% interest on mine, but there have been times when I've done 0% or had other percentages. Whatever you want to do here is obviously completely up to you. For the beginning date, we're going to make it the same as the closing date. So we'll put May 1 in here. And then has a down payment or any earnest money been made? In this example, we're going to say yes. I almost always require some kind of down payment when I sell a property. And the amount, in this case, we're going to say it's $5,000. Which will make the loan amount exactly $20,000. And then what are the payment terms? In all of my experience, I've always done this top one here, installment payments of principal and interest. But if for some reason you want to do something different, you can obviously choose a different option here.
What is the payment agreement? This is really just saying what the payments are going to be and if there's going to be a balloon payment at the end and how long it's going to take them to pay it off. Depending on the loan amount, I'll usually make the term of mine anywhere from 3 years to 10 years at the very most. I kind of decide on that number based on how much the borrower is willing to pay per month and how much they can afford, along with how quickly I need to get my cash back. In this case, I'm going to say that it's going to be a 5-year term, which is the same as 60 months. And balloon amount is going to be nothing. I'm just going to get 60 equal payments and then get this thing paid off. And then type of installments, this is going to be monthly. And we'll hit continue. And then will a late fee be charged if an installment payment is late? I always say yes, just because it's kind of a disincentive for somebody to miss a payment or pay late. So I'm going to keep it as yes. And then the amount that I'll put in here is just $25. I'm going to give this person a grace period of, what the heck, we'll just say 5 days. And then for this one, we're going to give them an extra 10 days. So basically, they have until the 5th of each month before their payment is considered late, and they owe an extra $25 late fee. And then they have until the 15th of that month until it's considered in default, and we can actually take some action against them. And I'm obviously not saying you have to use these numbers. That's just what I would do in my situation. If you want to do something else and follow a different timeline with different consequences, you can obviously feel free to plug in some different numbers here. So once that's done, we'll click continue. And then here, can early payments be made without penalty? We're going to say yes. And then what type of early payment will be accepted? I'm going to say any amount. And then will the buyer receive a discount if the contract is paid off early? I'm going to say no, but if you want to, you could do that, obviously. Is there any debt tied to this property? In my case, I always own all my properties free and clear, and if I don't, I'm not going to attach another loan to them. So in my case, I'm always going to say no. But if you've got a different situation, then you could obviously answer it differently. Will the seller be allowed to use the property as collateral on future loans? So basically, this would just mean that if I still own the property and it wasn't paid off, could I also tie up this property to take out another loan? And I just kind of think that's sort of uncool to the borrower, because that would mean that the property that they are paying for and thinking they're going to own could potentially be taken before they paid it off, which I think is just kind of a sleazy thing to do. So I'm always going to say no on this. And then who will have possession and use of the property until the contract is paid in full? This is pretty much always going to be the buyer, but if for some reason you wanted to say, no buyer, you can't even touch this thing until it's completely paid off, then you could also say this instead. But usually I set mine up this way. So I'm going to go ahead and make it like that and move forward. And then has the seller agreed to perform any specific repairs to the property? And I'm pretty much always going to say no. It's being sold as is. And then who will be responsible for maintaining insurance? When you're dealing with vacant land, insurance is not usually a huge issue. If this was a house and a lot more things could go wrong with it, then the insurance cost would be a lot higher, and it would be something that you would probably want to have more negotiation on, whether it's going to be paid by the buyer or the seller. But a lot of times with vacant land, if you even do get insurance, it's like very, very, very cheap. So for that kind of property, whoever does end up footing this bill, it's usually not a huge deal one way or another. And then who will be responsible for paying taxes assessed for the sale of this contract? I'm going to say this, and then usually what I do is I'll have the buyer actually pay me an additional amount each month, which I just store in an escrow account, and then I'm the one that actually pays the tax bill, but they are essentially paying me so that I can pay that bill. So that's kind of how I have mine set up, just so that I can be 100% sure that it's getting handled, is that I make them pay me a little extra and then I pay the bill for them. Because a lot of times these buyers are going to forget or they're going to do it late. And as long as I am technically the owner of that property, I don't want this being left to chance. I want to make absolutely sure that those taxes are being paid current. So that's how I'm going to do mine and set mine up. And then who will be responsible for paying real estate taxes and assessments through the term of this contract? We'll say buyer again. And then what type of deed will be used to convey the property to the buyer upon completion of the contract terms? This really just depends on how certain I am about the clearness of the title. So for example, if when I bought it, I got title insurance and I know that this thing is clear and there are no issues, in cases like that, I would choose either like a warranty deed or a special warranty deed. But if it's a property that perhaps recently recently went through a tax sale, or perhaps if I did not do all that thorough of a job of doing a title search on the front end, and I'm just not ready to put my neck on the line and promise somebody that the title is clear. In those cases, I would choose something like this. I've got another video and some stuff on the blog that talks about some of the differences between these two types of deeds, so if you're not really sure about that, feel free to check out that video. But in this case, I'm just going to pretend that I didn't do all that thorough of a job with the title search. I just looked at the most recent deed and that was it. And because of that, I'm not ready to do a warranty deed. At the very most, I might do this, which just guarantees that there were no new title issues that came up during the time period when I owned it. But even that, I don't know. If you want to have absolutely no liability attached to yourself, you would do the quitclaim deed. And some buyers are not going to be okay with that. But if they don't care, it's the least risk way for you to do it. So that's what I'm going to go with here. And then who will be responsible for the cost of recording the deed? We'll say a buyer, and they are going to pay that money to us, and then we will get it recorded after the closing. Who will be entitled to claim the property for tax purposes? Let's say the buyer in this case, but obviously you could do either one if you want. And then which state's laws will apply to this contract? And in my case, I'm also in Michigan as well as the property is, so I'm just going to say Michigan. And then enter any special provisions you would like included in this contract. But I'm just going to skip this part for now because it doesn't really apply in my example here. And then who is preparing this contract for deed? I'll put myself and then continue. And now it is creating my contract for me. And so once this document has been generated, you can go here and let's just download a PDF of it to take a closer look at how it reads. And then we can scroll through it here. If you read through this document carefully, especially the first time, just so you understand what it says, it really just outlines the terms of the loan agreement, and it has all the information that you put in there and answered earlier on. And it looks like it actually calculated the payment for us automatically. Sometimes you'll have to manually put that number in, but this particular form looks like it just did it by default. So that's kind of nice. And you'll just kind of want to go through here. If when you're going through this document, you come across anything that you want to change or edit or get rid of or anything like that, it's really very easy to do that. You would just go back here and then click edit. And then we will do this change answers. And then I'm just going to quick scan through this and make sure all the answers are right here. And then after reviewing that contract, I couldn't find any place in there where I was able to fill in this information. And that should actually be filled in. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that now. And essentially all this is saying is that when you get this document signed and notarized by all parties and you mail it to the county register of deeds to get recorded, where are they supposed to send that original document back after they've, put their sticker on it and run it through their system? So I'm just going to put my location in here because I want them to send it back to me because I'm controlling the flow of this documentation. Hopefully that all makes sense. Hopefully you found that helpful. Again, RocketLawyer, you don't necessarily have to use it, but I've just found it's a lot easier than trying to work with a template, because when you have just a straightforward template, it gives you a lot of potential areas for you to miss stuff, where as you could see with RocketLawyer, it just literally took you through each item step by step, and you literally had to tell it if you didn't want to answer a question. So you're fully aware of everything you're missing. In terms of the cost of RocketLawyer, it's really not too bad. If you go over here to the pricing page, you can kind of see at the time of this recording, these are what the two options are. This is the one I'm doing right now, the premium subscription. And if you want to pay for it yearly, if you know you're going to use it year round, you can save 20% on that. And as you can see, it's not necessarily cheap, but it's not like horribly expensive either, especially compared to the cost of using a lawyer for all these things. If it's a simple enough deal and if you know what you're doing, it's not too bad to use this to prepare all of your documents for land contracts and things like that. So anyway, it's just an option out there, and it's what I'm using right now for a lot of my stuff, and it's working pretty well for me. So that's how you create land contracts with RocketLawyer, and that's how you can do it too.